Okay, for this video, we'll be discussing about MySQL triggers. So the objectives of this is for us to define and understand what are triggers and demonstrate to you before and after insert, or maybe just after insert, and maybe some before and after update triggers and before and after delete triggers through several examples here. So the syntax of trigger is something like this. So we have create, and then optionally we can define the user, definer equals user, so this is optional. Then next we have trigger, and then optional again we have if not exist, so that is to so that there will be no error if, let's say for example, this trigger here already exists. So create trigger followed by trigger name, trigger time, and trigger event on, and then the name of the table. Then for each row we have the trigger order, so this is also optional, and the trigger body. So trigger time here can be before or after, and then trigger event can be insert, update, or delete. So it can be before insert, before update, before delete, or after insert, after update, or after delete. And then on followed by the name of the table. And the trigger order will be follow or precedes other trigger name. If, let's say for example, we have several triggers, but these optional parameters here are rarely used, so we'll be using the syntax wherein we don't have the optional parameters. So this statement, the create trigger, creates a new trigger, and the trigger is named database object that is associated with the table, and that activates when a particular event occurs for the table. The trigger becomes associated with the table named whatever the name of the table is, so which must refer to a permanent table. You cannot associate a trigger with a temporary table or a view, so it is a permanent table. Trigger names exist in the schema namespace, meaning that all triggers must have unique names within a schema. Triggers in different schemas can have the same name. If not exists, prevent an error from occurring if a trigger having the same name on the same table exists in the same schema. This option is supported with create trigger beginning with the MySQL 8.0.29. But you can actually create, just place a separate statement for that. Create trigger requires the trigger privilege for the table associated with the trigger. If the definer clause is present, the privileges required depend on the user value. So these trigger event values are permitted. So we have the insert trigger event. So the insert trigger event, so the trigger activates whenever a new row is inserted into the table. For example, through insert, load data, and replace statements. So these are the statements that can trigger the insert, the trigger event. So this will trigger the trigger event, insert trigger event. Then update, the trigger activates whenever a row is modified. For example, through the update statement. And then the delete, the trigger activates whenever a row is deleted from the table. So for example, this is through delete and replace statements. Drop table and truncate table statements on the table do not. So remember, drop and truncate do not activate this trigger because they do not use delete. Dropping a partition does not activate delete triggers either. So to illustrate triggers, we have here our example. So we have these two tables. We have the products table, wherein we have the following fields: product name, price, and quantity on hand. So this is where we store the inventory of products, so inside the products table. And then we have your sales and purchases. So for sales, we only have product number and quantity. Oh, where's my sales ID? So I'm sorry. Let us try to modify the sales. Let's modify the sales table later on. So there should be sales ID here, product number, and quantity. For purchases, we have purchase ID, which is an auto increment, product number, and quantity. So allow me to edit my MySQL table first. So drop table sales. Allow me to drop the table and then recreate it. Sales. We have sales ID, integer, say 5. So we're just recreating the table. Maybe default 0. So this is now our sales table. So let's proceed with our slide. Then examples. So there are the table that I've shown you are the tables of a simple inventory system. The inventory of the products, which is actually in our products table, is updated accordingly. So when items are purchased or items purchased, we add the quantity purchased to the inventory. No, this is not be sales table. This is the product table. Sorry for that. So we add quantity purchased to the inventory, which is actually from the product table. When the item is sold, we subtract quantity sold from the inventory. So this should be from the inventory. When we purchase, item is deleted. So we purchase. So when we purchase, that is added. But what if we delete the purchase record? Then we subtract the quantity to the inventory because that was previously added. So when a sold item is deleted, then so previously when an item is sold, we subtract. So if the sold item is deleted, then we add the quantity to the inventory. So we put it back. Then when item purchase is updated, what are we going to do? So when we say update, maybe we can change the quantity, we can change the item itself. So subtract quantity from old item, then add quantity to the new item. So we purchase. So again, we subtract from the old item and then add quantity to the new item. This new item can be the same items also. So when item sold is updated, we add quantity to old item and then subtract quantity from new item. So let's try these examples. So first, let us do this one. Items purchased. So we add quantity purchased to inventory, or this should be the product table, not sales table. So let's try to write the trigger first in Notepad. So this is my syntax: create trigger, trigger name, then trigger time, trigger event, on table name for each row, trigger body. But first, we should place this one. Why? So that is to change the delimiter. So when we type delimiter, so that will be my new delimiter. So that if I type, for example, select asterisk from M, then instead of semicolon, I'll be using double slash, because that's the delimiter I specified. So if I type select asterisk from M semicolon, it will do nothing. So to put it back, delimiter, and then that's it. So select asterisk from M, so we can now use that delimiter. So this is I will explain that later why we need that one. So let's go back to our notepad here. So delimiter, then this will end the create trigger statement, because this will end the create trigger statement, this double slash here, and then this will return back to our default delimiter, which is the semicolon. So we change the delimiter, we end our create statement, and then we we return the default, or we set the default delimiter to semicolon. So what's our syntax? It says here that we have create trigger. So that's create trigger. So we have create trigger followed by the trigger name. So let's say, for example, my trigger name is insert purchases, ins purchases. So that's my trigger name. And the next will be trigger time. Let's say I would like to update the inventory after I have inserted on the table. So my trigger time is after. So let's say trigger time. And then trigger event is after insert. Okay, so this is my trigger time. Trigger event is insert. Then we have the keyword on. And then the name of the table. So once we insert on the purchases table. So after that, we have for each row. And then we have to begin, end. So you notice I have here a semicolon. So that ends my statement. But I don't want this to be the create trigger statement will be done only if this one is encountered, not the semicolon. So later on you'll understand again why. So what are we going to do if we purchase? So according to our slide, we add quantity purchased to the inventory to our products table. So that's what we're going to do. We update products, set quantity on hand, or let's put a qualifier, although it's optional, equals products quantity on hand plus we add the purchase, or that's the new that quantity. Okay, so if you still remember, describe sales, purchases rather. So we have here the quantity, describe products. So we're updating products, we're updating quantity on hand. So set products that quantity on hand equals products that quantity on hand plus the new quantity added in our purchases. So where pradno is equal to new dot pradno. So product number should be equal to the product number we entered in our purchases table. So new here is actually referring to the purchases table. So that will be our trigger. So create trigger, insert purchases, that's a trigger name. Trigger time is after, trigger event is insert, on followed by the table name. Then for each row, begin, then this is our trigger body. Update products, set products that quantity on hand equals products that quantity on hand plus new quantity, where product number is equal to the new product number. So you notice the reason why we're using this delimiter is if we don't use that delimiter after typing this, MySQL command line will now will try to execute this statement, but we don't want this statement to be executed. We want the whole statement, this statement, to be executed. That's a create trigger statement, not the update statement. That's why after this create trigger statement, then we have this one to execute this create statement, and then we put it back. We put back the default delimiter. So to create now the trigger, let's just copy this and paste. Oh wait, I think I still have the trigger. So this is how we delete triggers. Okay, so let's now copy and paste again. Control C. Then enter. So delimiter, then we have the create trigger statement, and it ends here. And then set query. Okay, so we have now this trigger. So we can type show triggers also. So that's our trigger. So let's try. So select asterisk from products. We can see that the quantity on hand is 0. So we don't have any quantity on hand yet. So what happens if we purchase products? So we try now to insert into purchases. So let's say we're going to enter only the product number and quantity values. So let's say 1, we're going to buy 100 items. For number 2, 150 items. Number 3, also 150 items. Number 4, 200 items. Number 5, 200 items. And number 6, let's say 100 items. So we have inserted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 records. So once I press enter key, so let's now check our purchases. So we have here inserted 6 records. And let us now check our inventory. So you notice that it is already added to our quantity on hand. So let's proceed. The next is when an item is sold, we subtract quantity sold to or from the inventory. We subtract from the inventory. So let's now create the trigger for that. So this is our first trigger. So this time we have another trigger. Create trigger, insert sales. After insert on sales, for each row begin. So what they're going to do, we also update products. Set products.quantity on hand equals products.quantity on hand. This time around, we're going to subtract, because if we sold an item, then we should have lesser inventory. So our product number is equal to new dot product number. Okay, so when we sell an item, of course, we're going to give the product the inventory. So that will be subtracting from our inventory. So again here, we have insert sales. After insert on sales, the name of the table for each row begin, update products, set products.quantity on hand equals products.quantity on hand minus new quantity, where product number is equal to new product number. I can place it where products.prod number is equal to new product number. So this is referring to the product number I have entered in my sales table. So allow me to copy and paste. Okay, so let's try. Delimiter. Oh, sorry. That's it. So now let's try to insert a sales, or describe sales record. Insert into sales product number and quantity values. Let's say, for example, 50 items of champion was sold. So champion, the product number is 5. So product number is 5 and quantity is 50. So insert into sales product number quantity. So since I have sold, for example, champion, that's product number 5 and with the quantity 50. So I specified 50 and then that's it. So let's now check the inventory. So this is the initial inventory. For 5 we have 200, then now we should have just 150. So select asterisk from products. So you notice we already have only 150. Okay, so let's continue. So when the purchase item is deleted, we subtract quantity from the inventory. So purchase is deleted. So let's type again delimiter, create trigger, so delete purchases. After delete on purchases, so for each row begin and delimiter semicolon. So what are we going to do if we delete a purchase? So update products, set products dot quantity on hand equals products dot quantity on hand. So previously when we added a record, we inserted that, but since we deleted a purchase, then we should subtract. So minus old quantity. So that's the old quantity, that is the record that is already inserted in our purchase table. So where product number is equal to old dot product number. So we're now referring to what is already inside our table. So that's the old value. Okay, so let's check. Create triggered del purchases after delete on purchases. So for each row begin update products that quantity on hand equals products that quantity on hand. So we subtract again because purchases will add, but if we delete the record, then we should get it back. So by subtracting the quantity. So that is now our trigger. So we copy and paste. Okay, so select asterisk from products. So let's say I would like to delete product number 2 in our purchases. So we like to delete purchase ID number 2, where purchase ID number 2 also contains product number 2 will serve. So originally we have here 150. So what if we delete from purchases, where purchase ID is equal to 2. So purchase ID is equal to 2. So enter. Then let's now check our inventory. So notice it is now 0 because we have deleted this record. Let's I would like to add one more record to sales so that I can delete a sales record later on. So insert into sales, we have product number and quantity. So values, let's say for example, I have here 6 and 25. So select asterisk from products. So from 100, I have here now 75 because 25 was sold. So select asterisk from sales. So I have here 2 sales record. So when a sold item is deleted, of course, initially when we sell an item, we delete the record. So if that record is deleted, then we put back the quantity on hand that was deleted last time. So we add the quantity to inventory. So it's just the reverse of this. So let's try to create the trigger now. Again, we have the delimiter. Create trigger del sales after delete on sales, and then for each row begin and so double backslash delimiter, and then we have here our body. So update products, set products that quantity on hand equals products that quantity on hand. So we add now the old quantity where product number is equal to old product number. So just the reverse of purchases. So we check create trigger del sales is the name of a trigger. After, that's a timing and the event. So after delete on the table for each row begin, so we update products at products quantity on hand equals products that quantity on hand plus old quantity. So we return the quantity because we deleted sales. So initially when we sell an item, we subtract. So if we want to put it back, we add. So where product number is equal to old product number, delimiter. So we copy and then we paste. Okay. So yeah, maybe I'll just try that later. So let's first do the next 2 triggers before I delete so that I can use the others in my examples. So next is when an item purchase is updated. So we subtract quantity from old item, then add quantity to the new item. So we have here the delimiter, create trigger, update purchases. So that's the name of my trigger. So after update on purchases. So we have for each row begin and double backslash delimiter semicolon. So what do we do first when we update a purchase? So it says here that so when we purchase, we add. So we subtract from the old one and then add to the new one. So that will be update products, set products that quantity on hand is equal to products that quantity on hand minus old quantity. So originally if we update, we subtract because initially we add if we purchase. So for the old one, because we're going to replace that one, we subtract the old one and then we add the new one. So update products, set products that quantity on hand equals products that quantity on hand minus new quantity, where product number is equal to new product number. So we subtract the old one. Oh, this should be add. We subtract the old one and we add the new product, the new one, the new item, the new quantity. So it can be the same product number or this different product number. Okay, so let's review create trigger, update purchases. After update on purchases, so after we update the purchases record for each row begins, we have update products, set products that quantity on hand. So we subtract the quantity from the old one. That's why we place the old product number. That is what is already stored inside our purchase table. And then we replace that one with the new quantity we placed and using the new product number. So that is now our trigger. So I can copy and then paste. So let's try to check. So that's our products. Purchases. Let's say, for example, here for Ariel, I had an error, for example, in the quantity on hand. The same product, but the quantity on hand should be equal to 175, not 150. So I can place here update purchases, set quantity equals 175. So one quantity equals 175, where purchase ID is equal to 3. So I did not change the product number, I only changed the quantity. Okay, so what will happen? So of course, if we're going to simulate that, since we don't have any items that we have only one record for purchases, so this should be changed also to 175. Okay, so let's select asterisk from products. So it was now changed to 175. So what if, for example, so we have here joy. So let's say, for example, the 200 here is not supposed to be joy, but it's supposed to be surf. So what are we going to do? So update purchases, set product number equals 2 and quantity equals let's say 180, where purchase ID equals 4. So initially 4 is the purchases for joy, but we changed that to 2, so joy here should now be 0 and surf should be equal to 200 because we changed the product number here. So it should not be updating the joy product, but it should be updating the surf product. So that's purchase ID number 4. Okay, so let's check. select asterisk from purchases. So you notice initially that's 4, now it is 2, and this is now 180. Select asterisk from products. So this becomes 0, so we subtract 200 here, and we added 180 to the new one. So joy becomes 0, so initially that it's 200. So what we do, we subtract the old value, and then we add the new value to the new product. So we have here now 180. Okay, so let's proceed to the last one. So items is no, we are now where are we now? We're now on. So I think we're through with this. Purchase is updated. Then now we're item sold is updated. Add quantity to old item. Then subtract quantity from new item. So I think we're here. So item sold is updated. So we add quantity to old item. Then subtract quantity from new item. So just the reverse of when we update purchases. So here, let's create the trigger. So update sales. After update on sales. So for each row, begin and double backslash delimiter. So since it is almost the same, I'm going to copy and paste. Okay, but when we sell, this should be, we put back the old quantity, so we add and we subtract from the new quantity. So that will be my trigger. So let's check. Create trigger, update sales. After update on sales for each row. So again, when we sell an item, we initially subtract. So if we update, then we put back the old quantity using the old product number, and then we subtract the new quantity using the new product number. So that is what we're going to do. So that's it. So let's now copy this and paste. So select asterisk from products, select asterisk from sales. So we have sold number 5 and 6 for 50 and 25. So let's say, for example, this should be not 50 but 75, the same product. So update sales, set quantity is equal to, let's say, 55, where sales ID is equal to 1. So what will happen? So select asterisk from sales. So this is now 55. Select asterisk from products. So initially that's 150 when we use 50 as the quantity. But since, let's say, we committed the mistake in typing the quantity, it should be 55. So we subtract 5 more. That's why it is now 145. What if, let's say, for example, we change this one instead to tied? So we have update sales, set product number equals 1. So that's tied, and quantity is equal to the same quantity, 55, where sales ID is equal to 1. So let's say in our initial sales we use champion, but it should actually be type. So what will happen now? So select asterisk from sales, select asterisk from products. So that's it. We now have 45 only items left from, because we sold 55 items of type. So from 100 it becomes 45, and this one we should put back the 55 items, so it becomes 200, its initial value. So what if we delete? So we don't have the delete yet, so delete from sales, where sales ID is equal to 2. So we have 25, it's 25, so what we're going to do, we should return 25 to this quantity on hand. So select asterisk from products. So that's it. It is now 100. So what do we? So we have now we have here several examples of the triggers. So this is our last trigger, and you can actually show the triggers here. So show triggers. So these are the triggers. If you want a clearer view, you can type show triggers. So instead of semicolon, you use backslash uppercase G. So in that case, we have here now our triggers. We have the insert purchases. So these are the statement begin and then update purchases. So these are the statement, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's all for this video. Thank you very much for viewing.